Welcome to Navajo County Connection. I'm District 4 Supervisor Steve Williams.
And hello, I'm District 5 Supervisor Dawnafe Whitesinger.
Today we have a special episode with our Navajo County Manager Glenn Kephart and Assistant County Manager Bryan Layton. Thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us. It's our pleasure.
We always like to have our guests take a moment and introduce themselves for our viewers. So, Glenn, let's start with you. A little background.
Oh, thank you, Chairman, Vice Chairwoman. I came to the county a little over 2 years ago as the Public Works Director. I had the pleasure to lead a really fine team of Public Works employees, and then last summer, our longtime county manager and highly respected Jimmy Jane decided to move on to our neighboring county of Coconino County, and the opportunity was presented, and I eventually became county manager and have been since interim of August of last year, and it's been great. It's been great because we have a really awesome team around us who have done a lot of good things and are continuing to work very hard for the county. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Glenn. Bryan.
Thank you. I've been with the county about 2.5 years now. Came from the city of San Antonio. Primarily I oversee budget, HR, finance, risk, those internal services for the county, and really enjoy being here. Thank you.
Well, both of you, Supervisor Whitesinger and myself, have both been with the county since the two of you joined the team, and I think I'm safe in speaking on behalf of all of us that you've been tremendous additions to our team, and it's been a pleasure for us to work with you. So, thank you.
Thank you, and likewise.
I certainly agree. I think that it also leads into our upcoming discussion and the work that you've done on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the county, and also the people who live within the county. We'll see your works and your commitment and dedication in ensuring that we're making sure that the public is informed, but we're also making informed decisions. So I appreciate your work and commitment with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the budget for this next year and where we're at with that. Bryan, do you want to start off?
Sure. The budget is balanced as required by law. We've been able to save a little bit more than we expected, so we have a little bit more in fund balance heading into next year. And we've been able to save some money for capital expenditures. As you know, for the past about 10 years, we haven't been able to invest as we'd like to in IT and network and vehicles and tools and equipment for staff. But this year, we're in a better position to be able to do that. So we're really excited to make some of those investments that will help keep our services strong and keep access for our residents.
I know last year, and maybe I'll take a moment if we can and just back up to last year. Last year, we faced some economic challenges where really for the last decade, the Board of Supervisors had been needing to tighten their belt more and more and more each year with some economic challenges and reduce the workforce at the county level and trim fat. And last year, for the first time, we actually had to cut a couple of programs entirely from the county. One, the Juvenile Detention Center, and then the other, Child Support Enforcement. Do either of you want to touch on those programs?
I would like to just, and maybe Bryan can touch on the programs a little bit more. He was heavily involved, and I remember those discussions as Public Works Director, and they were a difficult time for the county. But it was important work, and as a new county manager, I was really grateful for the administration and the supervisors of what you have done in the past to get us to where we are today. Going back to 2008, we've looked at the numbers, and staff was cut by 16% between 2008 and 2018. And most of those reductions were tightening of the belt, being more efficient, finding better ways to do things, all the way up until last year when another $2.5 million out of our budget needed to be cut, and it involved specific programs. We weren't able to tighten our belts anymore. So Bryan, maybe you can speak a little bit more about those programs and how that was a difficult decision, but an important one for the county to make. And it positioned us for this year one of the most important things that we can do is create a sustainable budget over time. We say we look at a 5-year horizon. Is our budget sustainable? And we've gotten to that point, notwithstanding that we have some challenges coming down the road. I think we'll talk about that a little bit in a little bit. But because of the work in the past, we got to a point this year where our revenues actually matched the services that we need to provide.
Yeah, the juvenile detention, closing that facility was very hard. And currently we send our kids down to Florence to be incarcerated as needed, as ordered by judges. Again, that helped us balance the budget to set us on a path for a sustainable budget. I think it's really important, and something I'm really excited about, is that the challenge of having to change the budget and do more with less has spurred innovation. And over the next couple of months, we're going to be really excited to share some new innovations that the county is spearheading in the area of juvenile detention, alternatives to juvenile detention, that we're really excited about. And I think that innovation, that need to think differently, came about from not having all the resources available and that need to pivot and evolve our services. So I think it'll evolve and actually produce some good things for the county here moving forward.
You know, I've with last year's budget and needing to cut $2.5 million, I kind of looked at that as a forced opportunity to be innovative. And as far as like with the juvenile detention center, 8 of the 15 counties are in some kind of partnership like we are. A lot of the rural counties were having difficulty funding juvenile detention, and so 8 of the 15 counties, as I understand it, partner with other counties to house their juveniles. The other issue was child support enforcement, where if someone's not paying their child support and they need to go to court to be taken to court, before that service was done through the county attorney's office, we've now shifted that to the attorney general's office, which is consistent with most of the other counties in the state. But between cutting those 2 programs helped us get to a $2.5 million cost savings that we were forced to do. But it helped us to look for ways to be more innovative, like you said.
And I think one of the things that has come out, and I've said over and over again, is that because we have to cut programs, it doesn't mean it's necessarily negative for our community. I think, again, you know, you bring up some good points in being innovative, but also how are we being accountable to those dollars and ensuring that we're doing just, in a sense. And so if we didn't make those decisions last year, the circumstances that we'll be sitting in this year wouldn't look the same. And being able to provide necessary services or being able to put away those dollars so we can upgrade network and so forth. It is a difficult balance, but I think it does force us to look at, well, how do we provide the continued services, but in a better way or in a different way? So
I think you raise a really good point, because there's been some good work done in the past that led us to a successful budget this year. But we don't stop there. We're looking ahead. And when we look ahead, we see that we have some significant work to do to address some challenges that we're going to have in the future. We know that we have the NGS power plant in Coconino County, actually.
The Navajo generating station?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. The Navajo generating station in Coconino County that has announced that they will be shutting down in December of 2019. That's just a little over a year away. That's significant to us because the fuel supply for that power plant is exclusively comes from our Kayenta coal mine, which is in Navajo County. And the mining of that coal and the sale of that coal to the power plant generates significant revenue for Navajo County. So we have to look and say, what are we going to do when that revenue stream closes down? And then we also have a planned closure of Cholla power plant, mandated to close by 2025, Bryan? 2025. It could close any time between now and then. And that's another significant loss in revenue that we rely on today to provide the services that we provide, whether that's public safety and the deputies and the jail, or the recorder who provides critical services, the assessor, the public fiduciary. There's a lot of services that we provide that the public may not even know that we provide, and we rely on that revenue. When you combine both of those together, it's about $2.5 million a year that we will lose. That's really significant. And if we sat here and we didn't do anything and we ignored that and just waited till it got here, we'd have to reduce our personnel services by 20 to 25% to make up for that in the general fund. We're not sitting here ignoring that and pretending it's not going to happen. We're starting to have the conversations. What does that mean? And what does the county look like? And what are our options to overcome those challenges? So just as we've done in the past to look ahead, we need to continue to look ahead.
I think one of the things that we talk to neighbors in the community, or we talk to people in the community, some of the concerns are, well, why aren't the cuts taken from somewhere else? You know, why would we have to eliminate juvenile services, or why would we have to I guess, look at potential services being eliminated. I know in the work that you've been doing with departments, and we've had the opportunity to meet with every department, that the discussion is very deep within the organization. It's not just okay, how many staplers can we not do without? What are some of those things that we've really had to scale back on as an organization as we look at departments?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it has been an ongoing conversation. And I think it's important to remember that since the recession started in 2008, the county's been on that path of trimming and cutting down and trimming and cutting down. Immediately, it was those capital expenditures, computers, servers, ITs, vehicles, much as you would in your own home budget, right? If your hours were cut back, you'd look at what you could do in your own home budget to cut back and trim back. And we've been doing that, and it's been an ongoing discussion. And I think now our residents can be proud that we have a small government, we have a lean government, we have a very efficient government. And it's been a good discussion. We have great elected officials, we have great department directors that have been very active participants in this, doing without combining duties with staff. Everyone has worked really hard to get our government sized and on a sustainable path as we are this year. And for the first time for this budget that we're proposing, we haven't asked departments for reductions. They can keep services where they are, and I think we can be proud of that as a community.
And that's based on some of the tough decisions that were made last year, as well as really a collaborative effort of employees at the county and department heads and our administrative team getting to the point that we're not asking for reductions this year as we've had to do in the past several years. One other point that may be worth making is we've looked back on where the county has tried to cut and be more lean. The county has generally tried to cut from those services or trim back in those areas that don't necessarily impact the citizens on a day-to-day basis.
Unlike the previous reductions in which we were able to keep public safety whole, public safety and public defender, county attorney's office, and our legal services account for about 52% of our general fund budget. It would not be possible to leave those untouched this time if we had those kinds of reductions. So we would be looking at reductions across the board, including public safety this time. We've talked to the sheriff about, we've done some exercises of what if we just cut evenly across the board, how would that work? It goes from everything where you have some departments that are so small that the rounding doesn't even allow them to cut one position. They just don't have the people. One of the things that we've been going around to staff and talking to them about what our future could look like. And in the treasurer's office, as an example, our treasurer, Deborah Kester, she had to stay back and answer the phone so her staff could attend the meeting. It's not like people have surplus staff sitting around now, because that 16%, really cut it to the bare minimum to be able to provide the service. So it's a challenge. And then we look at public safety, who really tightened their belt and helped the general fund, but they didn't have to actually make the reductions in staff. And we've talked to the sheriff about that, and we would see with the reductions significant increases in response times and many of the things that we're very proud of as a county, and the sheriff has done a great job to provide high-level public safety. We would have to figure that out, and it would be difficult.
And I think one of the things that has come out continually is that in the past, public safety has been, in a sense, protected, that we've ensured that the services that are required for our community members are provided. And so the budget capacity for public safety has continued so that they can continue to operate. Although there's always a need, I think, with every public safety agency for more patrol officers. Certainly we were in the same position and didn't have the luxury of adding additional, but we always ensured that there was a protection of the public safety. So I think in this perspective, we're looking at public safety a little bit differently. What does that look like in response time? Is that an extra minute? Is that an extra, we don't know what that equates to. And I think all of those things are important when we start to examine, well, how do we look down this, I guess, road and begin to make sound decisions, or in asking the community about, well, what does that look like, and what is amenable to you in being able to provide sound public safety?
So if we were to sit back and do nothing, and just let the closure of Navajo Generating Station happen and Cholla happen, and what would happen to the county and the force reductions, you would, in essence, be forced to have, in 2008, what 100 people were doing for the county, you would essentially have 60 people trying to perform the same level of service,
Yes,
correct?
That's correct.
And so we're not sitting back and doing nothing. This next fiscal year, things are looking well. We're in a healthy place. We're not making reductions.
Right.
We have a little bit of a surplus that we're setting aside for the future. But those factors that we can't control, a closure of NGS, closure of Cholla, let's talk about what we can control. What are we doing into the future to try to improve economic development? What are things that we can do to try to change the future for us?
We do have a really concerted effort on economic development opportunities, and Bryan can speak to some of the specifics on that. When we look at that, whether it be improving the broadband that we have on the mountain, which is critical, I think that holds us back. We've got some really good opportunities with some good sites. When we look at Cholla as an opportunity for a significant development industry to come in there, you've got a power plant that has I-40, it's got railroad access, it's got, as Bryan always says, it produces power and sends it out. That could be turned around and be power that comes in to serve an industry. So it really has a lot going for us. And we have our paper mill site that has railroad access. We have such a high quality of life here. I think it's one of the best kept secrets in not just Arizona, the country. The quality of life here is special, and we know that living here. And a lot of people don't realize that. They come up for the summer to escape the heat, but there's a high quality of life here year round. And as people figure that out more, the growth will happen. One of our challenges on the economic growth is the timeline. The timeline of December 19th, it takes a while to get the industry that actually has the high-paying or the sustainable jobs that we would like to see. It's probably a longer time frame, but it's important nonetheless, and we put a great deal of effort on that. We have our economic development director, Paul Watson, who works with Real AZ, which is a consortium of all the local cities and towns in Apache County and Navajo County to talk about things that we can do to better position ourselves. And I know there was, Bryan, do you want to touch on the grant money that we got to do a study for?
Absolutely. So Paul Watson has been working very hard on this. We got some grant money from the state to perform an economic study, which was presented to the board about a month ago. So one of the real exciting parts of that is broadband, and Glenn touched on that a bit. Broadband is what could really unlock a lot of potential in our areas. Glenn talked, we have the quality of life, we have the natural resources, but Paul explains internet, broadband is as if you had a really thick milkshake, you're trying to drink it through a very thin straw. How much are you going to really get out? That's like our internet right now here in the area. So broadband, as we've been looking forward and working very hard. Staff has been pushing on this for over 2 years now, working with state and federal partners. We've been partnering with Gila County schools and libraries to build this coalition to go after broadband. I think we're very close, and that instead of a little straw, we'd have a pipe that comes down. And not just a single pipe, it's a pipe coming from multiple directions, so if there's a blockage in one area, folks in this area can still have internet. Any of the big businesses, even small businesses, home businesses, need good, strong, reliable internet. And the county's been working very hard for a long time, coordinating this and to make this possible. And so I think that's going to be a key to unlock the potential of the area of new industry at homes and at sites like Cholla.
On the broadband issue, there's a couple of step process that we're going through, and we're past the initial steps and we're well on our way. But what kind of a timeline? Is there a timeline of when we know if this project that we've been working on is going to come to fruition?
We've been part of a consortium that includes all the libraries and school districts in Navajo County, and also Gila County is part of that, to build a broadband network that connects all the schools with a level of technology that they should be able to have at the schools. That consortium, Navajo County as a part, has done an RFP, a request for proposals for qualified firms to build this network. It's a very expensive network. We're talking 60, 70, 80 million dollars. And we've had numerous firms apply to win that bid. We also, during that period, we secured a state grant of about $5 million. And that state grant would be matching money for a federal grant that would actually provide the money to build this.
It would be a great benefit and a blessing across all areas of the region here if that were to happen. So thank you for your efforts on that.
Certainly, and we're looking at industry and developing industry and having markets come into our community. Those are big selling points for our community. I appreciate the research in not only the broadband, but looking at other industries that are potentials within our community. I know that we've talked a lot about that, and recently receiving a grant to help us, I guess, look at the bigger picture and begin to identify some of those industries and how broadband is so important. And I think that's part of that proactive conversation. And I also know that through the help of Supervisor Whiting, in his work at the state capitol, and others of us who were able to work with the Rural Caucus and being able to communicate the need, and certainly the partnership that is important with our lawmakers and being able to help them understand our position has certainly been a big part of the win for this year. I know that it's been important for us to be apprised of how does the system work and how does it benefit and impact us not only now but down the road, so we can best communicate that to those who impact us, the lawmakers. And I know that relationship has been very, very important this year in establishing that and helping us look down the road in a positive way. So we appreciate all of those efforts as well.
Absolutely.
So let me try to summarize here as we wrap up. For the last decade, the county has consistently tried to trim the fat, be more lean, be more innovative. Presently, we are at a healthy and stable point, and if revenue sources and the economy stayed where it's at right now, we would be good into the future. However, we can see into the future that there's going to be some changes with revenue streams with the closure of Navajo Generating Station in Cholla. So we're looking to be proactive, to continue economic development. We've also asked our administrative team to look at all possible options with revenues going forward, and I've asked you to come and present to the board. And I know that's coming in the next couple of weeks. You'll be presenting to the board, and we look forward to that report. Anything else you'd add as we wrap up here, Glenn?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to have this important discussion, and we've been having this discussion with our community. We have been going out to all the towns and cities and talking to them about the things we've done in the past to get to the good state we're at, but what we see coming down the future and how that's going to be a challenge. And that's going to have to be a community discussion. We pride ourselves in the partnerships that we have with all of our communities and the tribes in the nation. It's part of what defines us as Navajo County. So we need to solve these issues together, and that's why we've been reaching out to our communities and being open and honest about here's where we are, here's what we see coming down the road. Let's work together to figure this out.
Great. Well, thank you again, both of you, for being here with us. Thank you for the work that you're doing, that you have done, are doing, and will continue to do.
Well, thank you.
And thank you to each of you for joining us here on Navajo County Connection. Once again, I'm District 4 Supervisor Steve Williams.
And District 5 Supervisor Dawnafe Whitesinger.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.